If you've been around, you may know this guy. It's possible you've never even heard his name, but Mike Fielstra, my interview today, was really insightful. What's interesting about him is that he has a long time sales background. He had a whole sales career before he entered into selling for an MSP, but now he's pivoted and he works in the marketing side of managed services. Some of the things that he had to say when I asked him the question, what are the biggest mistakes that MSP salespeople make, will blow your mind. It kind of made me furious, but it also made me very hopeful for the fact that there's such obvious mistakes that we're making. There's got to be nowhere to go but up. So let's get into it. Mike Fielstra from Tech Pro, from MSP sites, from out and about in the channel. You've seen him. Mike, thanks for being here with me, man.
It's a pleasure.
We met through Nate, of course, and one of the reasons I liked you when I met you is that you're one of the guys who was in an MSP, but you don't hate yourself.
Yeah.
And there's only like 6 of those. No.
Yeah. We're a small crowd. We meet on Wednesdays. There's still a support group though.
Yeah, right. No, you were, anyway, you were in MSP. In fact, I think it would be great to talk a little bit through your history there, because I want to talk to you about sales and marketing today, of course, but you're pretty battle tested, and you've kind of come to sales and marketing through an interesting channel. So do you want to talk to me a little bit about, your time in the channel, like what that was like, and then sort of lead us up to how you got together with Tech Pro?
Yeah. So I had a background in sales. I mean, I've been doing sales for quite a while. I did machine tools, used to sell Flow water jets, was the superhero Flow Man on YouTube for a while, very tongue-in-cheek, and used to do a lot of YouTube videos and stuff for them, and sold machine tools in the Mid-Atlantic. Changed industries and everything else and moved into digital marketing for McClatchy News. They own a whole bunch of newspapers across the country in their automotive program. And then I think 250 of us got laid off in a day as far as a sales team, which was interesting. Moved into technology, doing tape backup for a company, Quantum Corporation, selling tape into the federal government and into the intel agencies, knocking on a lot of 3-letter doors and cold calling phones that just ring endlessly. So had quite a few years as cold calling, and then really did find a good kind of niche with the MSP that was local into my area. A friend from the tape company was working there, helping them develop their low voltage cabling. They were looking for an inside sales role, cold calling. My eventual title was hat rack, right? Because I was cold calling, I was doing inside sales, helping with account management. I was the executive assistant. I was also doing a lot of the full sales cycle. I was then engaging with Tech Pro marketing and kind of the marketing admin as well. And, you're so diverse and you work so well in so many circles. We're going to get you to work in a lot of these different areas, since your Gantt chart overlaps in so many areas. Is a great way of utilizing talent and, not having to pay for it.
Right.
Then Nate and I had a great relationship. We were within TMT, we were in Robin Robbins' program, and that was going okay. I still have one here, I think, poker chips and aspirin packs and sitting ducks and some of the mailers and cold calling. But I think with COVID, it had really started to change the numbers game from 100 dials is 10 conversations is 1 appointment to like 200 to 300 dials for that same appointment.
Yeah.
And we're really looking to tap into more of that inbound marketing methodology and getting people that are lower in the sales funnel. So we partnered with Tech Pro Marketing, and then I really started to follow up on their leads. And I think it was my tenacious approach. Just because somebody raises their hand, just because somebody fills out a form, doesn't mean that the sale is done. Or even if they've set up an appointment with you, you got to make sure that they're going to show up. You've got to have good follow-up cadence. You've got to make sure that they stay engaged.
Yeah.
All the way through proposal. And then after the proposal, you got to make sure that you're still engaged with them too.
Right.
So Nate had me start training some of his clients. A lot of it was on cold calling and just the whole like lead cycle and lead management. So there I am, a client dealing with the influx and wearing all the other hats and everything. And it I won't say that he poached me. I definitely wasn't poached, but there was definitely a really good looking breadcrumb trail over to Tech Pro Marketing. And the interesting thing is they never left me feeling like, they never told me no. Anytime I wanted something as a client, Nate was like, yeah, we figure out a way to do that. So then having such a great relationship that I'd built with the team, yeah, when I was ready, my youngest daughter was born and shifted fully into that remote role, which was great. I like being virtual. I've now been here almost 3 years. So I head up the sales and marketing. I am the entirety of the sales department here,
right.
for both brands. And then, yeah, the marketing extension for our internal marketing that we're doing as well, helping out with the rest of the team.
So I want to ask you a question, and I'm aware that I don't know. We can cut this entire thing if we don't want this out, and if you don't want to talk about this, that's more than fine. But you were the hat rack, as you put it. Did that contribute to you wanting to leave roles?
So this may come as a surprise to some MSP owners, but sometimes salespeople want to have a bonus structure. And right, I was promised one for 2 years and never got one.
I see.
So my compensation plan was in draft mode for 2+ years. And it was very random. I'd close a deal and I'd get this kind of bonus. And then I'd close this deal, which was smaller, and I'd get a larger bonus. But this one was a larger deal. There was no structure. There was no commission plan. That was the main reason I left.
I see. Okay.
That more than anything, but also, what is my role? Am I a hunter? Am I a gatherer? Do you want me working on marketing? Do you want me doing sales? Now you want me doing all this other stuff and you want me to make 250 dials a day. That's a lot of dials with all those other responsibilities.
30 seconds a call too at 250 dials. I mean, that's yeah.
And my methodology has always been pick 10 people, call them 3 times in a day. If you're going to really focus on them. So it didn't even apply to like my methods. You just want me to dial for a numbers game versus, quantity over quality. So there were some challenges there with everything I'd learned for success, like throwing it out of the window and just saying, all right, just make it quantity and let's see how that works. So there were a lot of factors that came into it, but more than anything, 2 years of waiting for just a plan. Just tell me how I'm going to be paid.
Wow. Yeah. Again, I don't want to I don't want to throw bad blood or bad energy out to, especially if your employer, your former employer.
My former MSP is still a client. They're still one of our best clients.
Cool. Okay.
We're doing sales training with them in 12 days. I'll be meeting with them and probably having dinner with the owner. So no, he knows what happens.
I mean, we might as well title this interview "How to Catch a Unicorn," because
sure.
So I relate to a lot of what you're saying. I mean, we have different journeys, we have different skill sets and personality types, but I was worth a lot of money as an employee. I was worth way more money than you could ever justify paying me. And so the mistake is to not even attempt, essentially, right? Like the mistake is to take for granted when you've got somebody who can just do anything you tell them to do. The bad habit for an owner, and this can happen to anybody. The bad habit for an owner is they just accidentally keep throwing more things at you, but they don't step back and ever realize, are they getting paid commensurate to their value? Am I creating value for my employees, or am I extracting value from my employees? And if so, if you're extracting from someone, then they've got a limit. There's only so much you can take before they're out.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I'll say that's a big difference working where I'm at now. I don't have a quota. I
Really?
don't have sales goals to meet or anything like that. My goal is to help. Right. Every strategy call that I go into someone with is to figure out what's going on currently with your marketing. Where might there be some holes in your offense and your defense? you
Hmm.
know if somebody's not a great fit, I still want them to walk away from the call that they had with me thinking, man, I got a lot of value out of that. He gave me a lot of great ideas, constructive criticism on my website, things that I could implement on my own. I'm always dropping whatever book I might be reading at the time or something that might relate. If they haven't touched on like the pumpkin plan or they ask you answer, or I've got like EOS here next to me, any of like the freshmen or like startup MSPs that come in and they don't have the budgetary necessary for, one alley, which is tech pro marketing, then hey, maybe we can talk about MSP sites and at least getting the website up and going. But I want to bring value to the conversation and have them always kind of have me in the back of their head, like, I got this idea. I should just bounce it off of Mike. I always tell them, hey, you just ever want to book another time with me and throw the tennis ball back and forth about
Hmm.
what you're thinking and what's working for our clients or any of those kind of things. And that kind of help first mentality, it's one of our core values, has paid so many dividends into the future where people come back. Yeah, we talked like 2 years ago and I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I've had like 4 of those conversations this year alone already.
Right.
So
For the last few years, whenever people ask me, because I get asked for marketing recommendations all the time, I'm almost wary of saying that into a hot mic because then every marketing agency is going to call me and be like, "Send me all your deals." But I also have no qualms with telling you, like, yeah, to the average MSP marketing agency, I'm like, yeah, the reason I don't send you anything is because you suck. Like, you don't get anybody results. And I've had
wait,
10
let me
clients,
let me get you 200 backlinks a
right?
month. They're the end all be all, right? It's not like they're going to become 404s and a boat anchor. I think
Right.
anybody that's out there, anybody that pitches you on an abundance of backlinks, like, end the conversation. That is,
Right.
it's not, you know,
There's a hot tip for you right there. There
yeah,
is no,
there's
yeah, everybody has their little like this thing is the thing that works or whatever. And backlinking is a very important strategy, but that's not
true.
the way you do it, to your point. But yeah, agencies come to me and I have every time I'm speaking at an event with MSPs, I say, raise your hand if you've invested in marketing. They all raise their hand. I say, keep your hand up if you got an ROI. 80% of the hands go down. So and it's cathartic, I suppose, for some of them, but to realize it wasn't maybe necessarily their fault. It was probably at least a little bit their fault. But I brought this up because for a long time people would say, "Well, who do you recommend? Who do you recommend?" And I'd say, "I formally recommend no one. However, I've heard the least bad things about tech pro marketing." That's what I
That's
said
beautiful.
for a long
No,
time, and
that's legitimate.
yeah,
It's a
um,
great way to put it. I got a bunch of leads from Reddit last year. It was like March or April, and I had 6 leads come in from Reddit. They all cited Reddit, and they all said the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of, you got to be careful on Reddit, but I think the MSP threads that are on there are pretty solid. I'll give a shout out to everybody in the community that contributes there. But
yeah,
all of them said, I went through multiple threads and nobody had anything bad to say about you. And if there's a
yeah,
place on the internet where they're going to say something bad about you, it's
right,
Reddit. So it was. I take it as almost like a badge of pride. Like, we've got a good reputation.
yeah.
You know, um,
Because what's great about a performance-based company who's been in business a long time and has a good reputation, it's something you cannot fake. And there's no shortcut to being in business a long time with no bad reviews. See what I mean? There's no shortcut to that. It's like being in shape when you're old. There's no shortcut. You had to sort of be in shape for a long time. That's the
yeah,
greatest stunt. That's the greatest way that you can ever like brag to anybody is being happy and in shape when you're old because it means you've made a lot of good decisions for a long time. And I've just recently, I mean, you already know this, but I've just recently started actually in specific situations formally recommending tech pro marketing. And I do not do that lightly because now I'm like, now if it doesn't work, I'm willing to eat it. I'm willing to take some responsibility if you don't get results. But I think, well, we could unpack that a little bit more, but to be honest, I don't really want to talk about tech pro marketing. I kind
Yeah.
of want to talk about sales, because you you had to do every kind of selling
Mhm.
in your MSP. Let's unpack that a little bit. When you were there, what was your favorite part of that job? What was your least favorite part of that job?
I think I think favorite part. I do take thrill in the hunt. I do like going out there and prospecting. I think I am a little bit. I'm not your average bear when it comes to that. I enjoyed calling. It wasn't painful for me. I like picking up the phone. I got
Hmm.
into that, making those dials and stuff. And that's a rare thing. I'm clearly flawed in that respect.
Uh-huh.
But to me, the introduction call is what I'd rank first because I like getting to know them, right? And I do like digging. And I think it's one of those principles you and I both are like, where's the pain? And what's really
Hmm.
going on? It's not about what I'm using for my firewall or my switch or, this email
Right.
tool or any of that, right? What's going on with you? Like, what are your technology challenges and really learning about the individual client? And I heard you say it in one of the other ones, the hill you'll die on, really getting into who our ideal client was as well. I come from a manufacturing background, 10 years, in the water jet industry and selling CNC. And I know manufacturing and all those kind of things and was super passionate about it. So being in the Seattle area with all of the aerospace and manufacturing, but then also really appealing to the blue collar clients, like finding that
Hmm.
industry segment where we really had some connection and I could really make a difference for them, really make some, hey, here's just a little bit of technology that if you put it into place, it's going to change your business and we're
Yeah.
going to grow as partners. Your business is going to grow and therefore my businesses grow. Just like finding those good fits, that would get me excited for the rest of the process. It's like, I like this guy. I really want to work with this guy and everything. And then, of course, the close is the best. I mean, there's nothing. I don't know if there's anything better than like getting that deal. And we
Yeah.
would ring the cowbell. When we got the signed deal and all those kind of things. That hunt when you bag that thing, and because you did the hard work, you
Yeah.
worked it through the process, and it worked. Everything went right. Expectations were set in the right way. It's going to be a smooth handoff to service. Now, the in between stuff, like having to meet and go on site and do we deploy an agent, and a lot of the conversations discovery wise that I would also do with our CTO and things, eh, I'm just not, I don't think my nerddom reaches that level where I get really excited about,
Yeah.
those kind of things. But the start and the end, I'm not big in the middle. Get me to
Right.
qualify, get me to do that fit conversation, and then the passion that I have, my enthusiasm has been a big part of my success in sales and bringing that to the presentation and the proposal and those kind of things. Relationship building as well. I'm a people person and getting
Yeah.
to know folks, Mr. Personality um,
Uh-huh.
has been a big part of it too. But I don't know. That was the neatest part. Just really getting into an industry segment that we'd never really tackled before, and then developing those relationships and finding other groups and associations that we could join to find more of those types of clients. That was
Hmm.
cool. I like that.
Yeah. It stands out to me. I think one of the reasons, of course, that are intrinsic to your success is that you don't ever seem to not be working when I'm talking to you, and you seem to kind of, and I don't mean that I maybe in a workaholic way, but you just seem to sort of be a freight train. Like you're just always looking forward, you're always moving, and there must be some grit that there must have been some formative experiences that helped you sort of develop that. Or is that always inside of you? That kind of like the drive, was that always there? Or when did that become a part of your professional life that you could cold call all day without it draining you or without it, destroying you?
You know, I give credit to my dad because he started me working at such an early age. I started at The story was always he started picking cherries in Michigan when he was 5 to pay for his school clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But mom pushed back, and I didn't start working in our garage until I was about 8. And then my birthday present for my 14th birthday was he woke me up and he drove me into the county to get my worker's permit, and he paid the $75 for my worker's permit so that he could start paying taxes on me. So I've always been very driven the way that he was. And I grew up with, he would come home from a 12-hour day, go to the garage and start working on other stuff. So I think that was a part of it. Always been a really hard worker. I've always put in extra effort and things like that. But I think as far as sales go, it really changed. One of the mentors I had during my time in the water jet industry, my regional manager that I worked for, it was just such a driven guy. And he was always thinking about it, right? The process, what's next? How do we move these guys forward? And this is like no CRM or anything. We just had a shared Word document. And every day we would meet in the morning for about an hour and figure out, all right, this is the top of the pipeline. This is the middle of the pipeline. We're closing these guys this month. What are we doing to every one of these to move it forward in the process? And I think we talked about it when we were with Robert, the accidental salesman, or whichever one it was. I remember reading that a long time ago, the Red Book of Sales. If your engagement with that guy is to not move them forward, why'd you even meet?
Yeah.
So I think it's just been ingrained in me. What are we doing? What's the next step?
Yeah. I love that you had, first of all, relate to the childhood experience a lot. Like my dad is old. My dad is from the silent generation, and my mom's a boomer. And on weekends, I shoveled gravel and laid sod. Like, my dad was a painter, and my dad had full-time painter for the city. And then on weekends, he would do side gigs. He would work for like house flippers and stuff. He would go. So sometimes in the summer, I'd wake up thinking I'm going to wake up early and watch cartoons. And my dad's already up, and he's like, "Hey, get your gloves. We're going to go, you're going to go sand all the baseboards in this house."
Yeah.
I'm like 11 years old. And it was, that was just kind of that was what life was to me. And I thank God for that, to be honest. A lot of times people from the outside, lots of folks who struggle to find success will have little opinions and jabs about other people's success, and they'll make these assumptions that other people had it easier than they did. And sometimes that's true. I'm not telling you that everybody who has success earned it, and that everybody who doesn't have success doesn't deserve it. Don't hear me say that. But there is a chance that the reason that somebody's outpacing you is because they're working harder than you. There's a very real chance they're just working harder than you, or they're working more consistently than you, especially in sales. Like, you don't have to be a freaking rocket scientist to be a salesman. Some of the best salesmen I've ever met in terms of how much they earn are the dumbest people I know.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I'm going to steal from one of the guys, a new team member, Vince. I'm going to tweak his saying a little bit, but the hard work puts you on the throne, but consistency keeps you there.
Nice.
He talks about it with SEO and content creation and things, right? Consistency. That's what it's all about. Every day, my schedule is booked. I typically have, solid 4 to 5 hours of Zoom pitching all day, every day. And it's few and far between. I keep joking. I need to put it in my email signatures that I respond to emails after normal business hours, because it's usually once I've read a couple of stories to the littlest one and put her to bed by 8:30, and then back in the office from like 8:30 till 11 o'clock midnight is when most people are getting my emails. Most people are seeing me in Slack. When they wake up in the morning, there is a plate of new things to do from Mike Fielstra. Now, I operate behind the sun because our team is East Coast based. I'm 3 hours behind them. When I started this gig, I told them I'm not starting at 5 a.m. West Coast time I will start at 8 a.m. I have family and everything else.
Yeah.
So, and this is one of the rare times where I was working East Coast hours, but not really and everything. But I burn the midnight oil, and I have to.
Do you ever have that sense of camaraderie? This is something that I've noticed about myself. Like, when I get an email at 11:30 at night and I respond right away, and then they respond right away, and I'm
Absolutely.
like, it's like you found a brother in arms.
Mhm.
You're like, hey
Absolutely.
man, I see you. You like we out here. Like,
Hmm.
do you ever do you get that
For sure.
feeling?
Yeah. I mentioned Vince. He is in Slack at the oddest hours of the night, just like me.
Uh-huh.
I find him there quite often and will Slack him and a few clients as well. I even have a few clients of mine that we have reached a level of like social friends on like Facebook and the other platforms. We're texting things.
Uh-huh.
Um, I acted as somebody's chief marketing officer the other day and made calls into a new area because they're looking to acquire. So I'm just
Huh.
randomly calling MSPs and asking if they've ever thought about being acquired or have any interest. And I don't know. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's funny when you have those clients who do just like text you questions. And I tell them all the time, maybe it's being a part of that like Zennial. I have had both analog and digital, right?
Yeah.
I joke with my kids that, I should be defined as BG before Google, like my driver's license when Google started, right? And I was a cold caller for a long time. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll call you. I'll speak to you. It's not just an email.
Yeah.
Or I remember the days of the pager and when texting was, really took off as well. I text with a lot of our clients on a lot of different things. And they come in at really weird hours. And the biggest one that I've noticed too, you talk paid ads, for most of my clients, I'm telling them, don't run ads on the weekends. Nobody's looking for a new MSP
Hmm.
on the weekends,
Yeah.
because
That's
it's when
good
they're having
advice.
problems, right? They get the blue screen of death on a Wednesday is when they're looking, but it's the inverse for us MSP owners. You are all on your social media on the weekends and you are browsing late at night. I get more meetings booked on
Hmm.
Saturday and Sunday after like 9 p.m. in their local time zone when they're burning the marketing oil and they're like, I got to figure out this marketing thing. I got to get more leads in. I know I can close deals, they think. It's just funny to me how many of them come in on the weekends, like after dinner time. Kids have been put to
Right.
bed and now they're searching. So
That is
yeah, there's a
so
lot of them
funny.
out there. There's a
You're
lot of
right.
them.
For me, it's that or early morning. I
Yeah,
usually
that too.
I wake up to leads all the time because I'm also West Coast
Hmm.
and East Coasters are already at it, but they get there at 6 in the morning, which is three
Oh,
in the
early.
morning for me.
Yeah.
And so I've got every morning I have something exciting that I wake up to in my inbox for the same reason. I want to I don't want to skip one quick thing you said, and then I'm going to talk to you about MS. I want to talk to you about what current MSP salespeople are doing that you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned a mentor that really helped you along the way, like a supervisor or something.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're sort of in an age where, like, often, especially in sales, where like mentorship almost doesn't really exist. And in
Yeah.
our industry, in MSPs, you don't have very few MSPs have a sales department. They
Mm-hmm.
have a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have anyone to show them, mentor them. But I mean, I don't know. Like, how do we create that culture of apprenticeship in technology? I think a lot of them have that on the tech, like the tech guys, a lot of them get to help each other and there's more camaraderie. But in sales, it's not always that way because a lot of times you're one man armies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have
You
any
know,
thoughts?
oh, absolutely. It's so funny how many times, I mean, we work, our sweet spot is 1 to 5 million. Most of our
Hmm.
MSPs, I've got more that are bigger. I've got some that are smaller, but in most cases, it's owner led sales. And the number one thing I hear, well, we're going to hire a sales guy. Well, what kind of magic wand does he have that he's going to just be able to magically,
Yeah.
make stuff appear? And it's got to be, nobody's going to sell the business like you. I always tell them, I mean, nobody's going to have that story and the telling and the all of the mojo that
Hmm.
comes with being the business owner. But if you haven't defined your sales process, everybody puts so much effort into the after the sales, the
Hmm.
service documentation and the onboarding documentation. And they've got everything as far as that operational maturity is dialed in for when they get the client. But none of them have documented or really like built a sales process for the front end to feed into right? So you have to, if you can't have them walk side by side and show them what success looks like, if you don't walk them through that process and teach it to them, they're not learning it from the ringmaster himself out of the gate. How do you expect them to be successful? I mean, even if they have experience in the MSP industry or have a technology background, or even if they're just a great salesperson, and you know, to my own horn, I've always been really good at sales. I've always, people ask me, you in sales? You know, or what do you sell? They would say, and the appropriate answer is, what do you need? Right? I'll sell you anything, baby. But
right.
if you haven't defined what your sales process is, these are my steps, these are my processes, this is how we do it. We like How are you going to expect anybody to succeed and just come in and invent that stuff for themselves? They got to bring their own system with them and hope that it, you know, adapts to yours. Now, I've done spin selling, which can kind of be done everywhere and in a bunch of other different methodologies, but MSP is so different in that B2B relationship and the trust factor and everything else. You do have to be a mentor to them. Otherwise, they're not going to be successful. I don't care who it is that you brought in and how much money you spent on them or what kind of incentive plan you gave them or anything else.
Yeah. You've got to mentor them on what you can. There's certain things you can pass down as a founder, but I would also argue that a lot of that you can't pass down. Yeah. And so there's fundamental tactical parts, especially like you can only teach somebody something that you know. So if you don't actually know how to sell,
right,
you can't teach somebody how to sell. If you know how to sell yourself,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Misguided people who think they can sell because they can close a referral.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, you're right. Which is different. That's order taking. That's a different thing.
Right. Yeah. Somebody walked in the door,
you
know, and we're like, hey, you got a great reputation. And so-and-so gave me that handshake and said, I got a guy, you know, I got a guy can't close that. Right.
Yes. And furthermore, on top of that, when you're a founder selling referrals, what you're selling is yourself. But nobody else, but your first sales hire is not going to sell you. They're going to sell your service. So you might know how to sell yourself, but you don't actually know how to sell managed services.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's different. Everybody now jumping on I'm adding the extra S into my MSP and we're going to focus on security and cybersecurity. And I swear if I hear bespoke or white glove or we're proactive one more time, I'm going to throw up. Right. It's just.
Yeah. I just posted on LinkedIn the other day. I said, I hear these things from an MSP once a week, but it's like, we're different because we care about our clients, or we respond quickly, or we don't use tech jargon. We're normal people. We're invested in your success. And I just triggered a bunch of guys commented back like, well, what is a differentiator then? I'm like, how about something that's different?
Make sure that you tell them that you have a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
Sure.
There's no geek speak, right?
It doesn't, it doesn't mean there's no value to these things, but there's definitely nothing different about them.
Right.
There's a difference between a value prop and a differentiator. And what we're describing these are all things that might be valuable maybe to some of your prospects. It's probably not as valuable as you think it is, but it's certainly not any different. Which this is a decent segue into, I want to ask you about this, because you work in marketing now. I mean, you work in sales, but you sell marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're oftentimes engaging with probably founders and marketing people, but you see a lot of MSP sales guys out there. What are you seeing most MSP sales guys doing wrong? What is the biggest mistake that the average MSP salesperson is making?
I really think it's surprising to me. Everybody comes to us. We're a marketing and lead generation company, right? I need more leads. But then when I give you the leads, you don't follow up with them. You just because somebody raised their hand and said they were interested, it's all about whoever gets there first, right?
Yeah, right.
You know, if you don't ask the girl to the dance first, somebody else is going to ask her.
Yeah.
You know, and I may get really lucky and be the last guy she dances with at the dance.
Yeah.
Because I somehow was able to get my hat in the circle or what have you. But it's just bizarre to me how I'll be going through the pipeline with them and I'll be like, God, so looks like we got you. I had one client. It was bizarre. I won't name names here. They know who they are. In a year and a half, we got them 85 leads and they closed one deal. And I know people have 85 leads. Do you know what I could do with that? Right. Now, granted, they disqualified a lot of them. We only work with people that are 15 or more users. Anything that wasn't 15 people, they didn't even read between the lines, which was the first big mistake, right? I think not following, second big mistake. First one is not following up. I'd be like, well, what about these? Yeah, I called them on a Monday, but they didn't call me back. So you didn't call them on like Tuesday or send an email on Wednesday or maybe stalk them a little bit on LinkedIn on Thursday, or you called them one time and because they didn't respond back, you know, I all the time. Well, I called them or they reached out, they connected with me on LinkedIn and they responded to the LinkedIn messages you guys are doing to me. So I called him and I sent him an email. I was like, well, he engaged with you on LinkedIn. Did you respond to him on LinkedIn? Because that was his platform of choice.
Yeah.
Right? Did you get into his DMs on LinkedIn? Because what could be a better opportunity to just use your LinkedIn mobile, whatever, and chat with him right there? Oh, yeah, I didn't do that. I had one where there were 4 leads in a week that came in on a Monday, and I called him on Friday because no action had been taken. Like, hey, I saw that like 3 of the 4 leads that came in were pretty qualified leads. They're still listed as in pursuit. You guys haven't engaged with them yet. What's going on? Oh yeah, I should call that guy. Are you kidding me? So that's number one. And then I think like the other side of that is once you've engaged and you've had that initial conversation, and this goes kind of how Nate and I form our relationship. They raised their hand, they said they were interested, but they couldn't make that meeting, and you didn't follow up and try and reschedule the next one. Or after that first meeting, did you book the meeting from the meeting, right, and schedule the next one? And then did you, all right, well, after we do that, why don't we go ahead and get something on the books for when I can bring by, our findings, or I can schedule the audit, or, you should always be thinking about that next engagement. And I think it's like, oh, well, I jumped over this stage gate and, oh yeah, that's right, I got to do that one up here. I didn't even think about that while I was doing it. That happens a lot too. So yeah, but the lack of follow through is just bonkers. And the disqualification too. Okay. So if you get a lead, this is a prime example of the guy, the company 85 and like close one deal. I went through one of them. I was like, well, this one here says that they're an 8-person CPA. They just merged with another CPA firm. They want to relocate both of those offices to a new location, do the low voltage cabling, all the APs, and they want to re-outfit everybody with the same kind of laptops. They're tired of everybody having different, one guy's got a Dell, another one's got a Lenovo. They want everybody to have the same hardware. But you didn't engage with them because they were less than 15 people? Like, that's a killer opportunity.
Yeah.
So you got to read between the lines. And I mean, it's funny too. CPAs get like this rap because we're only a 3 or 4 person CPA group. How many clients do they know that they could introduce you to?
I know that's some next level thinking that you have to go into sales with your head on straight. You have to really think. You have to be a true opportunist. I mean, okay, and here's an example, right? So when I'm cold calling for my MSP, it was like first month or 2 in the business, still don't almost nothing. Okay, I have like 0 technical expertise, and I call this company and I go, hey, listen, my name is Brian. I'm with such and such. We're IT and phone service company. We're in the city of Chino. we like to help other local businesses who might have this problem, this problem, or this problem. And I had 3 pains preceded by an emotional word. I was using the like classic Sandler script, worried about their data backup, concerned about cybersecurity risks, and they're sort of stressed out, or they're irritated at how slow their IT guy is to respond. I don't suppose you have any of those issues. That's all I said. And they go, we have an IT company, and we're happy with them. They take really good care of us. And I go, perfect. That's actually why I'm calling you.
Right.
So there's an amazing reversal for you. If you're a salesperson listening, when you hear an objection,
yeah.
When you hear an objection, go, oh yeah, that's why I'm calling. And they go, oh, and I go, listen, I partner with other IT companies, and there's a lot of things we can do to help one another. Can you put me in touch with them? And she was like, I think I could do that. Well, here's their phone number. I typed into Google, find the company. And I'm like, brand new, right? And she said, well, they don't do our phone. They don't do our phones. Our phones have been a problem, and they say they don't do our phones. But and I did VoIP. So I was like, great. So I get the number, I call, and I get a tech on the phone, and I'm like, hey man, my name is Brian. You don't know who I am. I just spoke to one of your customers, and I need to talk to your boss. And he goes, hang on, puts me on hold. I get through to the president of the company. They're 10 times bigger than us. And I go, hey, just want you to know, it's no bad blood, nothing weird. This isn't, this is not an adversarial conversation. I was just prospecting. One of your customers told me that they're very happy with you. You should be thrilled. He was like, okay, great, thanks. I go, well, listen, we do VoIP. They mentioned you don't do VoIP. And that ended up a relationship where they're like, yeah, well, we white label, and we're not really happy with our guy. I said, okay, how many VoIP seats do you have out? And he's like, 1,800.
Ugh.
We were doing under $1 million in revenue at the time. $1,800, $30 a seat. You can do the math.
Yeah.
Because I just found a moment and I climbed the ladder. I didn't know that was going to happen when I cold call. I didn't have a script for that moment. I was just listening.
Yeah.
I was just listening. So exactly. If somebody raises their hand, so I take every single inbound call, unless it's not an MSP. If it's like a vendor who's trying to get on my list and they just book an assessment, then I'm kind of like, hey guys, just so you know, this is a really bad first impression, and you're not likely to get a lot of great stuff from me. So why don't you email me what you wanted to meet about, and I'll tell you if I'm interested.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I do that.
I deleted 2 of those today.
Right. So you get it. But when they book a meeting with me, I go, yeah, listen, I look them up. They're small. I'm like, I'm not going to say no. I take this person asked to meet with me, and they asked if I could help them. I'm going to take the call. And if it's not a good fit, I'll know in 10 minutes. And I lost 10 minutes. Well, I quote unquote lost 10 minutes. I helped them out. But I've made so many amazing contacts simply by doing that. There's this another rabbit trail thought, but there's this author, Bob Goff. I think he might be a religious author, but I don't know if he is. I think he's just sort of like a mindset and like outlook kind of a guy. But he has this, and the end of every one of his books is his personal cell phone number. And he's a best-selling author. Tens of thousands of copies, maybe hundreds of thousands of copies. And he said he answers as many calls as he possibly can. Wow. And he's like, yeah, I have some days where I just talk on the phone all day long, and I get a lot of voicemails, and I call almost all of them back. And that's just his life motto. It's his life philosophy. He's just like, I'm open. I put my cell phone number in all my email signatures, and people say, oh man, you're crazy for that. I'm like, dude, you know how many times somebody's actually called me? Like twice.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Like ever. Like everybody's too afraid to talk. They're not going to call me. Like it doesn't, and it's already out on the internet to be bought anyway if you wanted to buy it. So I might as well just give it out.
I'll take it one step further. I put mine on my LinkedIn page.
Nice.
My number's on LinkedIn. Right?
Your real cell number, right?
Yeah. Call me. I tell people all the time in the conversation, like, if you ever just have a question, you want to just talk, like I said, bounce a tennis ball. My personal cell phone number is in my email signature. And then I steal my favorite line from Kevin Smith. I'm like 7-Eleven. We may not always be doing business, but we're always open.
And this is the difference between a sales guy and a tech, because a tech, I understand you can't do that because they're calling you at 11 o'clock at night going, hey, my Roku's not working and my wife is losing her shit. Can you come over and fix it for me? That's true. I understand. That's a different situation. But man, so salespeople not following through, we could unpack the psychology of that quite a bit. but you're not entitled. A lead is not a customer.
Right.
Those are different things. And you're not entitled to free customers because you paid for lead gen. You're getting conversations, but you still have to do your job. You still have to create value and close the deal.
And
That's
if you're
kind of
working on the
unbelievable.
process, it's like going to the batting cages or to the driving range and not trying to get those swings in. Like the whole process is repetition. If you're trying to get it down and you're trying to hone, you need those at bats. That's what leads
Yeah.
are. Everyone should be put through your process. You should be refining your swing, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Right. And getting those at bats. And I think too, it's just interesting. So Small Business Administration says that I think it's over even 90% at this point of small business in the United States is 10 people or less. So all of these MSPs that come walking through my door and they're like, well, we only take 10 people or more. I'm like, so, okay, so you want to eliminate like 85, 90% of the small businesses that are out
the
there.
economy.
Right. You don't want any of those. Where I was really successful and got on a pretty steady, home run, kind of number was doing the blue collar. I think so often the story that I got back from them was, well, we talked to other IT companies, but they told me that they were going to have to charge me the same price for everybody. My gals in the office, my computer users were whatever, per user, or if you're doing per device. And then I think, there's your flaw. You've only got one pricing model, and then my guys in the field who are using their cell phones to check email and maybe take some site inspection photos, those guys were the same price. I can't pay that for all my employees. And I just was like creative. All right, well, let me meet you where you're at. Right. Your computer users, the ones that need a lot more of that, they're going to be this. And I'll cover every one of your field guys for, $85 a head. And I'm going to give them all a device that we manage. I don't want them using their own personal devices. Here's a $200 Android device. It's in a bulletproof, waterproof, case so that they can't damage it. You're not having to buy somebody's cell phone. If they download something, they're going to use this from now on. It's got a good camera. We've loaded it up with software. If they leave, I can remote shut it off. They won't take anything. I'll track it if you want, whatever. But just that I was giving them a price break on their field guys. And then my sweetener, my cherry on top was the device, that managed hardware that we would do for them too. Man, I got so many introductions. My drywall guy introduced me to the concrete guy who introduced me to the HVAC guy. The HVAC company was 75 people, but then they bought their 4 biggest competitors in the area and went from 70 to like over 300 like overnight. And we had to bring all of their technology stack into one because they were all on something different. I mean, that was huge too. So I think, look beyond. How many users are you?
Yeah, right. This is a 10-year relationship. So if you're going to get hung up over 8 people instead of 10, you are being, have you heard this expression? You're being a choosy beggar.
Yeah, exactly.
You're being a choosy beggar. You're saying, I would do anything for leads, but just not these ones.
Just not these.
I'm not telling you every lead is gold. Like, don't hear us saying that. That's not what we're saying, listener. That we're not telling you that, because sometimes leads, quote unquote leads, Mike, you and I know it's BS. I get a first name and an AOL email. Yeah. Like, that's not a lead. You know what I'm saying? Because they wanted my white paper. That's not. And then marketing goes, look at this great lead I gave you, dude. That's not a freaking lead. The phone number is 867-5309. That's not a. It's not a lead. So anyway, I'm shocked to hear that what you're seeing. It does parallel what I'm seeing. That follow up is not a cute idea. Follow up is what sales is. That's why salespeople get paid. That's their job. And whether you have a lead or you found a lead or you made a lead yourself, whatever, following up with people is going to determine whether or not they do business with you. The amount of times somebody comes to one of my workshops, no engagement, very little engagement, camera off. 3 days later, I email or I LinkedIn them. I'm like, hey, how was it? Oh, it was fine. Hey, listen, I know that I know you didn't engage with me at the time. I'm just curious. Do you think there's any interest in learning about my program? And they go, I'm not really sure if we're interested. I would take a meeting. And I go, okay, well, why don't we take a meeting? And in 10 minutes, if you're not into it, then we hang up. And then they buy. I don't trick them. I'm not doing anything crazy. They just needed follow up.
Hmm.
It was just somebody to call them and say, do you want to buy my product?
We were actually really selective about who we took on last year. We had a paid discovery process. We really were trying to find the right clients. Was much more selective, and it was really interesting to me that we didn't have a follow up process last year. We wanted the people that were interested.
Mm-hmm.
You want to work with me? You'll come back to my email and say, hey, what's the next step? Like, how do we get this thing going? I wanted the people that were excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't twist anybody's arm. I don't want to convince you. I want you to be excited. I want you to see it as an investment in your company. It's the same kind of challenge as convincing a business owner that IT is an investment in their company and not just a cost center is the same thing of convincing an MSP owner that marketing is an investment in your company. It is not just a cost center. And it's not just a magic switch either.
Yeah.
The most frequent question I get is, when can I expect results? What kind of guarantee do you have? And I usually quote Tommy Boy and his line about guarantees because Chris Farley is my spirit animal. But, it's maybe careful about how much of that line I use. But it's just interesting to me that they're trying to convince people of the value, but they don't see the value in something else, and the investment in it as well. If you're going to put that investment into it, you're going to spend that amount of money. And all those people that were raising their hand and then lowered their hand because they didn't get the return on investment, my next question would be, what's your follow-up process look like for new leads when you were getting them? How did you qualify them? What kind of qualification process did you work them through? Did you meet with all of them? Then afterwards, after that first initial meet, what did you do? What was your next step in your process? Right? Did you book a discovery call to really dig in deeper? Did you then have like an on-site assessment? Did you invite them to the home court advantage, or did you just email them the proposal? No. You say, hey, why don't you come to our offices, and sit down and we'll have lunch and go through the proposal on my turf, right away from the distractions and everything. I mean, there's a lot that can be put into, those things. So, follow-up process. I mean, you and I talk about it all the time, right? I shot from the hip. Yeah, I figured, they were about 10 people. I knew what they were going to have. So I emailed them a proposal. I haven't heard back from them. I wonder why that is.
I wonder. Mike, I love it. We do have these kinds of conversations whenever we talk, and I always find it really enlightening. And it's a nice problem to get to. I think we all aspire to get to where we don't follow up with our marketing leads by design, and we can start charging people money for discovery. That didn't happen by accident, and it certainly wasn't the way that Tech Pro started. I'm going to tell you that right now. If anybody doesn't know who you are or what you do, give us the quick and dirty here on Tech Pro or MSP sites and how somebody gets a hold of you if they are interested in it.
Sure. Yeah. techpromarketing.com. You sign up for a strategy call with me. It's going to book 15 minutes for an intro call. We'll talk about what your previous experiences were. I want to know if you've been burned once or twice, as well as important to know if you've never experienced marketing, if you don't know anything about it, what's going on now, and what are you looking to do? Is there a revenue target you're trying to hit? You're trying to develop a sales pipeline. You just want to really improve your website and the conversion methodology there. There's not much that's not in our bag of tricks, and we are a very customized solution as well. I am not basic, better, and best, right? We really try to take a look at what you're doing, what you have budget for, how we can be the most effective in your individual area. If we're a good fit, and you see marketing as an investment, then we'll book a full hour call and we'll really get down into the nitty gritty and talk about paid discovery and all of the other things that we do.
Yeah, I love it, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for talking for so long. I liked that this one went longer, but that hour flew by for me. I don't know about you.
That's good.
Thanks again, man, for being here, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.